Good afternoon, everyone. It's August 7th, 2018, 5 o'clock. St. Croix County Board of Supervisors. I'm going to call the meeting to order. And at this time, I will introduce Mustafa Hamida for our invocation. So if you'd step forward, please. And we'll all stand.
Good afternoon. My name is Mustafa Hamida. It's a pleasure being here. I'm just going to share with you a brief blessing from the Islamic faith, and it actually just encourages all of us to be successful. Oh God, place light in our hearts, and in our sight light, and in our hearing light, and on our tongue light, and to our right light, to our left light, above us light, below us light, and before us light, and behind us light. Make for us light, and make us a light. O God, show us the truth as true, and inspire us to follow it. Show us falsehood as falsehood, and inspire us to abstain from it. Our God, inspire us to be rightly guided, and protect us from the evil of ourselves. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Cindy, we're ready for roll call.
Are you doing 2 minutes?
Yeah. I'm gonna announce it when I get to that point. Supervisor Tatum and Fosterlane. And Supervisor Schoberg is excused. So thank you, everyone. At this time, we're going to have public comment. I have several forms here, so what I'm going to do tonight is instead of a 3-minute public comment, I'm going to make that 2 minutes. So I'll set the timer for 2 minutes on that instead of 3. And as I call, I don't know if we have everybody in this room or if we have some people in overflow. I have to find that out, because then I'll probably announce the one that's speaking, and I will announce the one that will be up after that, so that you can be ready to come up for that. And just assume everybody that's speaking, just speak to the chair here and don't bring names or anything like that into this. So it'll just be get up and speak what you have to say on whatever subject you're talking about. So I think we'll start that. If anybody has any questions, we'll move on. The first one I have is Darla Meyer. And on the second person up will be Sarah Yoakum.
Darla Myers, 1098 Golden Oaks Lane in Hudson. I am just here with some new information. This just came out this morning as it was published yesterday. And the title is Marijuana Debate. Brown County Supervisor asks for delay request for state regulation for medical marijuana. So Brown County is often held out as one of the counties that is probably going to approve the referendum. They aren't. They rejected the recreational, and it looks like they are also going to reject the medical. The other thing that was interesting in the article is that it said Dane, La Crosse, Milwaukee, Rock, and Sauk counties will have marijuana questions on the November ballot. Winnebago and Walworth counties this summer decided not to ask voters about marijuana. So it isn't all in. There are county boards that are taking a step back and saying we need more data, we need more research, we need to look at the other states that are enduring this. One of the other things that I wanted to say was that you would not sign a contract unless you knew what was in it. The same goes for this referendum. There's no way you can possibly know what the consequences are to this referendum. Therefore, I ask you to vote no, because we just don't know. Thank you.
Sarah's up, and Joy Rosenberg is to follow Sarah.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to speak here. My name is Sarah Yacoub. I live at 81 Lockwood Court here in Hudson. Living in a small community is great for a lot of reasons, but also not so great for a few important reasons. One of those is the loss of professional objectivity, professionalism that erodes when our professional responsibilities come second to keeping our friends happy. County supervisors, ask yourselves, honestly, have you lost your professional objectivity? Government is not supposed to be a club where you and your friends hoard as much of the taxpayer money as possible. Government isn't supposed to be supervisors who are torn between doing the right thing versus their friendship with the local justice system and the financial incentive to keep milking the cash cow that is marijuana prohibition. Let's be clear. This referendum isn't anything more than a poll of voters. This referendum is nothing more than collecting data that community leaders can use to govern accordingly. This referendum is the start of a conversation to serve as a rudder for further discussion on local public policy. In the words of Alan Lakin, planning is bringing the future into the present so that you can do something about it now. Let us vote so we can start planning for state and federal legalization as directed by the data. Let us vote so that we can begin ironing out our local policies that protect local interests and promote small businesses and local farmers. Let us vote so we don't open ourselves up to exploitation by out-of-state interests who seek to monopolize the market. Let us vote so that we as a county can see if we have the support in the community to start ironing out these ordinances, limiting the punishment in the cases where people possess cannabis for medical purposes. Medical cannabis is already here in St. Croix County, here in Hudson. Hospice patients who get their hospice care in Minnesota, cancer fighters, adults helping their elderly parents mitigate the pain. Study after study shows us that THC and CBD actually offset the onset of Alzheimer's and dementia as it prevents the accumulation of protein plaques in the brain that causes it. May I have permission to finish?
Please not. I'd like to keep it at 2 minutes.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you. Joy Bensheim on deck.
Hello, my name is Joy Rosenberg. I have multiple sclerosis and I live in New Richmond. I believe the war on cannabis and its users has created an opioid addict in my own family. My father is a man who served bravely in the U.S. Marine Corps and is now 100% service disabled. I've watched as he tries and fails to treat his intractable pain with the hard drugs prescribed by the VA. His respect for the rule of law prohibits him from trying anything that can't be legally prescribed or purchased. I've seen his downward spiral with legally prescribed painkillers, first Darvon, then oxycodone, then Dilaudid, and finally to fentanyl. It's more than anyone, especially a veteran, should have to endure. So when my neurologist tells me that the only thing left for me, because I live in a non-medical marijuana state, to control the most painful symptoms of my MS is opiates, I'm filled with despair, disappointment, frustration, and fear. I've already been through the gauntlet of horrible MS drugs. They shut down my liver and they sent me into anaphylactic shock. If I lived only 15 miles to the west across the St. Croix River, I wouldn't be a criminal for turning to medical marijuana because Minnesota has begun to act sensible laws regarding medical cannabis. Sadly, here in my beautiful state of Wisconsin, in my hometown of New Richmond, that is not the case. So now I stand here imploring you, our elected public servants, to let our voices be heard. I'm not asking you to legalize anything. We're here to talk about a question. And why wouldn't you, as elected officials, want to know what your voters think and want? A no vote tonight tells us that not only do you not care about what your voters think and want, but you refuse to take that small step that would allow for further discussion of this very important topic that affects me and my loved ones. Please vote yes to allow this question on the November ballot per Wisconsin Statutes, Chapter 59, Subchapter 5, Paragraph 25, which states, "The board may conduct a countywide referendum for advisory purposes." Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Pen is up, and I have a McKeon on second coming up after that. Ben, see him? Yes, please. And I can't read this next one real clear. It looks like a Sarah McKeon will be up after Ben, so.
Good evening, board and community members. My name is Ben Sumi, and some of you met me last week at the Protection Committee meeting where I shared my personal experiences with cannabis. And despite the district attorney's valiant effort to silence my message and degrade my character and validity, I am here again. I am here on behalf of everyone that supports cannabis legalization throughout the state of Wisconsin, as your decision here this evening has the potential to impact all of us. And I want to start by saying that at this point, it really does not matter what any of us in this room think about cannabis, pros, cons, or otherwise. We can all go online and find information that supports our personal beliefs, and that information can be twisted, manipulated, and misinterpreted to support each of our arguments. So that being said, what really does matter is that the voters in Wisconsin, and specifically here in St. Croix County, do have the opportunity to voice their opinion, which is kind of the definition of democracy, after all. So I don't believe that too many of you ran on issues pertaining to cannabis, so I would believe that it's going to be hard for you to represent an entire community of people that you elected without them knowing what your stance was on that topic. So this is a non-binding question that is related to a bipartisan or nonpartisan issue that is simply meant to collect data to determine if there are enough Wisconsin residents that want to see some changes made to the cannabis laws. If that's determined to be the case, this data will give lawmakers an avenue to pursue further legislation down the road. Again, at this time, it's a non-binding question, so please do not silence the voice of the people based on your personal beliefs or by what you believe will or will not get you reelected. I would like to say, please vote yes on the referendum tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. This name I have here, I'm not sure, it's Sarah McKinahan
Sarah Monacan?
next, and then Phil Kotowski is after that. So.
My name is Deborah Monacan,
Okay.
Oh,
and I live at 200 7th Street North in Hudson,
Okay.
Wisconsin. And I know why that is, because I'm a nurse practitioner. Maybe I get a little sloppy. I am retired. I do know about pain. I do know about alcoholism. I do know about addiction. What I want to stress is that I don't understand through my career why this was any different than the amount of thoughtfulness that was put into, for instance, alcohol legalization. Alcohol has a very, very long history of many side effects, health consequences, and addiction. And the same cannot necessarily be held true in this most recent research with cannabis. What I have found is that it has, in fact, been very effective in many other types of treatment, like seizures you've heard about, pain especially. And I treated MS patients, and I happen to be an MS patient myself. My father had peripheral neuropathies. So it is not something foreign to me. I recently lost a friend to cancer. She was a very professional, respected woman whose pain management required that she be sedated and constipated. This was not true when she had the cannabis, and the cannabis actually relieved more of the pain than the narcotic did. So what I am asking of you is that you think about the fact that you are subjecting a person to go and seek or go across a border illegally to get something that they need in order to be well. My last comment to you is that in these very partisan issues, I think it is a good idea to have a vote, and so I request that you do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Phil is up, and Angela Olson's on.
I am Phil Katoski, 1123 4th Street, Hudson. One of my big issues with this is we've got a lot of test tubes around the country going on, and why are we kind of rushing into this thing for Wisconsin? I understand the medical. I understand that it works and all that. But the problem is it isn't just medical. It becomes recreational. Now, I assume a big part of this is financial. You want the taxes off of selling the marijuana and things like that. But how are you going to regulate the homegrown stuff then? How are you going to know which is homegrown and what is not? How are you going to know what the THC level is? You're not going to be able to regulate it. Once you get it started, it's not going to work. At least I don't believe so. Wait till the other test tubes in the country get their data and then go from there. But we don't need to rush into it. You know, at the very least, just put a hold on it until you really figure it out. The other thing is, I don't know if anybody read the article that I read a couple months ago, but if you smoke dope for a month straight, you become allergic to it. Believe it or not, that's what I read. Now, I don't know if it's BS or not, but I read it online. So there you go. There's a lot of stuff we don't know about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Angela Olson, Abby Testerberg up after that. So,
thank you for letting me speak. My name is Angela Olson. I'm a criminal defense and family law attorney. I'm involved in many local organizations and statewide organizations as a president, past president, board member, chair, and just a concerned citizen. But more importantly, I'm a mother. I'm a mother to a child with severe autism. My child, who's 10 years old, I think slept 2 nights out of the past 14. My child, who's 10 years old, can't make it through an afternoon of a restaurant, bowling with his twin brother and younger sister, without causing a complete disruption of the entire establishment. I implore any of you to spend one meal at my house where my son cannot calm himself down. He cannot regulate his energy. He cannot process his senses. And that affects all of us. I implore any of you to assist in changing my 10-year-old's diaper. And we have chosen not to go the pharmaceutical route. We have chosen not to use Adderall or other medications to calm him down. But 2 miles from here, not 15 miles from New Richmond, but 2 miles from here, Minnesota has allowed medication in children for autism, medicinal marijuana. But I can't do that because I'm not going to break the law. Do you think that doctors in Minnesota would put any child in danger? Then if you do, you don't know their motto, to first do no harm. Also, 2 miles from this very courthouse, veterans can get treated for PTSD with medicinal marijuana. They don't have to resort to opioids or alcohol. Alcohol, which kills 6 people a day by just pure overdose. And guess what? Marijuana on its own, not one. Not one overdose. I'm not an individual standing here because I want people to speak out to legalize marijuana so I can get stoned or that anybody else can, but to help my son process his everyday life. Vote yes.
Thank you. I won't have any of that. No more. Thank you. And then I have Scotty Yard up after you.
Hi. My name is Abby Testerberg. I'm going to speak a little off the cuff here. 8% of people can become allergic to cannabis, not consuming it for a month and then magically everyone becomes allergic to cannabis. We prayed at the beginning of this meeting for light, which I find to be very timely because we have light. We have people here. You have the ability to see a compelling constituent need to have a voice. So one of about 5 of the major concerns that I'm aware that you have, that I don't have time to speak to each one of, one of those is that the board felt that there was simply not a compelling constituent need. So far, the majority of the people that have spoken are telling you we have a need. I know that the majority of the people that emailed and called you are saying that we have a need. Cannabis is illegal. It is highly stigmatized in our community. Most people are not brave enough to come and speak in front of you and show you the light. We have agencies that make it, quite frankly, very scary to stand here. We saw that at the last Committee Protections and Justice meeting. I'm very proud and thankful for the people that came and spoke. I want to tell you that weekly, I receive messages from others that aren't willing or are too scared to speak. And I'll finish my last 20 seconds with the disease states that these people have. End of life, they're dying. Cancer, bone cancer, breast cancer, colon cancer, lung cancer, glaucoma, anxiety, autism, seizures, Parkinson's, sleep apnea, arthritis, PTSD, chronic pain, multiple sclerosis, fibromyalgia, a few more. These are all disease states that the DA said are fraudulent patients. Fraudulent patients.
Thank you. Scotty Yard, Peter Brock is up next.
Mr. Chairman, board members, good afternoon. I'm Scotty Ard. I am from New Richmond, Wisconsin. The non-binding referendum you have before you today is life-changing. There needs to be some understanding regarding what tetrahydrocannabinol is, which is THC. It has a psychoactive effect. This is what most people are familiar with when we're talking about pot or marijuana. When you're talking about a CBD oil, which is cannabinolic acid, it is a very different effect. It does not have a psychoactive effect. Instead, it has a calming effect, which goes to the central nervous system and neurotransmitters, alleviating the debilitating and critically severe pain that so many people suffer with. My mother would have done well with CBD oil for her pain. Her friend who died a horrendous death from cancer would have done well with CBD oil. I have a friend who has moved out of state. I've known her since my college days, but because of a critical accident causing damage to her spine, her legs, and her feet, and her inability to take opioids because of such emotional and destructive actions that they caused in her system, she moved out of state in order to seek relief. You are looking for the voice of the people that you represent, be it for this issue or against it. We have stayed in the dark too long under pharmaceutical companies who wish to make a lot of money and leave counties and municipalities cleaning up the mess from an opioid addiction gone wild. It is time to step in and stand up and say that people matter more than some archaic ideal
It's
of
enough.
what pot is.
Thank you, Scotty.
Thank you.
Peter's up. Sean Downing's up next.
Good evening. Peter Block, 309 North River Road in the town of Kinnick. I understand your difficult position. I chaired the Plan Commission in our township for 15 years, and there's always a difficult intersection of what to do when information comes flowing at you from a number of different directions. It is apparent to me, though, that this evening, much of that information is coming from mostly a single direction, and that is to consider the future of legalization of cannabis in this state. I challenge every single one of you individually and collectively that you would have more than likely, if you dig deep enough, and some of you don't have to dig that far, to either a family member or a close friend that has intersected positively with a health concern and cannabis. It is always a positive outcome. I have never heard of a negative outcome. My personal story, and I'll keep it very short, is my sister-in-law suffered from a disease that tremors were constant in her life. And as a result of us helping her find a dispensary in New York and getting the right dosage and intersecting with her primary physician, her tremors were reduced significantly within 48 hours, and she's still living a much more productive and happy life as a result. I think all of us can find an example like that. Knowing that, seeing the information, understanding that so many people are changing our culture towards the attitude of the use of cannabis in our lives medically, that is why policy is changing. That is why numbers of states are also taking a look at it differently. And I challenge you to do the same. It's not a difficult challenge. Thank you.
Thank you. Scene is up. Terry Polish is on up after that.
Hello. My name is Sean Downing. I live on 545 North Dell Street, River Falls, Wisconsin. And I'm here tonight to talk very briefly about how a majority of the public supports favoring legalization of marijuana. 61% in 2016 said we should be doing this. Today, the number is higher. As a citizen, I look at stuff like this and I say, who are we serving? The public, in my view, are kings and queens. And the public, this is a vote that says, hey, you know, we're looking at today not whether we legalize marijuana or not, but whether we respect the kings and queen, the real voters, the people who really are in power, the bosses that tell us what to do as elected officials. And I urge you to put this on the ballot, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Terry's up. Carrie Guich is on deck after that.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. Really appreciate your hearing this issue. My name is Terry Polish. I'm a volunteer with the Wisconsin Justice Initiative, and we're a nonprofit organization that considers mostly criminal justice issues, and that's sort of the perspective from which we come at this issue. And I'm not here to speak about the merits or the demerits of legalizing marijuana, but what I do want to say is, just as a general observation, it seems to us that right now we have all of the negatives of prohibition and none of the positives of regulated and taxed cannabis. And similar to alcohol, we have the law enforcement difficulties and the problems of widely available cannabis in our society, if you believe that's what cannabis brings, and we have none of the benefits of taxing it or regulating it. But what I wanted to do is just say that this is an important issue for your constituents to vote on and have their voices heard on for a really simple reason. It's coming no matter whether policymakers want it to or not. 30 states have legalized cannabis, at least for medicinal purposes. 9 states have legalized it for recreational. It appears likely that Michigan and Illinois will have full cannabis legalization after their next legislative sessions. Minnesota already has a medical program. And so this debate is coming. The FDA has just approved cannabis for treatment of certain seizure disorders. And so it appears likely that we're going to have medically accepted cannabis treatment very, very soon, even according to our own federal government. So we think it's an excellent idea for your constituents to be heard on this. And in fact, statewide, numerous counties are having referenda. And I just wanted to note that it's news to me that Brown County is not hearing it. Their county board did vote to have a referendum.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Carries up. Ben Plunkett's on deck.
Good evening. My name is Carrie Gerkink, and I'm here on behalf of the Hudson Inclusion Alliance. Many of the members are here tonight. My topic's a little bit different than what some of you have been, our speakers have been speaking about. We're here this evening in support of our brothers and sisters in the Muslim community. Our understanding is that all of you have received some emails, some of which are attempting to educate you on Islam and not coming from the Muslim community. As the St. Croix County continues to grow and diversify, we ask that you recognize that not all of us hold the same beliefs, nor do we practice the same religion. In general, we ask that our government representatives remain neutral on matters of faith. Should you decide to drop the invocation portion of the agenda, we'd support that decision. But at this point, we ask that you continue to support diversity should you keep the invocation on your agenda. Thank you.
Ben Plunkett. Flavin is up after that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak to you tonight about the issue of the marijuana referendum that you will be voting on later. We've heard from many people for many of their personal reasons supporting being able to vote on this. And I'm here tonight as the representative of the Wisconsin Homegrown Voters PAC to talk to you about the right of the people to vote. I'm going to quote from a document that we probably all have heard, maybe memorized in school. And the quote is that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. The Germans have a word called Vogelstrauß-Politik. Literally, it means ostrich politics, stick your head in the sand politics. I trust that this board does not succumb to this common human illness, so common that the Germans came up with a word for it. Real long until they are. That the best way to determine the consent of the governed in this situation and to speak to the state legislature is to allow a referendum of the public in an advisory manner. We have heard that there has been much pressure from various departments that are oftentimes intimidating to citizens. The police, the district attorney. We feel that it is not the role of departments to determine whether or not the public can vote on an issue. That if, through their unions or professional organizations, they wish to take a stance on an issue, they should do such. But they should not be pressuring citizens to try and intimidate them from coming before you to speak. Please vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Nora Flavin and Paula Fry is up after that.
Nora Flavin, Hudson Township. I just want to thank you all for being brave enough to be a public servant in this day and age, so thank you so much. I am here to say that my foundation and our foundation is based on asking in God we trust and what is the right thing to do for the health and the well-being of our community. And I'm not going to presume that I know exactly what that is, but I would like to offer a Christian prayer to ask and invoke the name of Jesus. So, Father, Almighty God, maker of heaven and earth, I ask in Jesus' name that wisdom and power fill each one of us here with your love and sound mind to make a right decision for this land and these peoples that are under your rule. And we praise you and thank you for that wisdom and revelation in Jesus' name.
Thank you. Paul is up. John Ramsack's up after that.
Good afternoon, Board, Chair. Thank you very much. Isn't it great to be American? We can come in a civilized society and debate the issues, talk about the issues respectfully. I think it's just a marvelous process. We are so blessed. 3 years ago, I came up here with an issue. Prayer was to be taken out. Discussion they were talking about, the board was talking about taking prayer out of the invocation. And a few pastors, myself, a few other citizens came and we said, no, we would like that to remain. And then I brought up the official oath that each one of you has signed as an elected official, and it states, I, and then of course your name, having been elected to the office of the County Board Supervisor District, swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin, and will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability, so help me God. You all did that. You approved it, and you did it, and you moved on. And I am sorry that I didn't return to pray as a citizen and ask God for wisdom for all of this board. We asked in favor of this. You voted on it. You said yes, and that was the last you saw of me. I left the door and got busy with my own life, so I apologize to each and every one of you for not coming back. And I just would ask that we reconsider this and put it on the next agenda, that we are not shut out. And we have to remember that our very first president in this United States that we love, all of us love, George Washington, he had the Almighty God. His hand was on him. He was called the soldier that could not die because he had the provincial hand of God on him during war. I thank you so much for hearing me out, and thank you very much for serving.
Thank you. John Ramstad, Marjorie Spaeth is up on deck.
Good evening. My name is John Ramstad, and I'm a resident of Hudson, Wisconsin. I was raised by a Methodist minister, and the things that he taught me in growing up were that we needed to love our neighbors and welcome strangers. And I want to thank you all for expanding the horizons of your invocation to include our Muslim brothers and sisters. The promise that God gave to Abraham and his descendants did not end when Jesus was born, and that there are blessings on many people and many faiths in our community, and we need to continue to share that blessing with all. Thank you.
Thank you. Marjorie Spaeth, Joy Knutson is on deck.
Thank you for the privilege of speaking tonight. I live in New Richmond. We've been up here about 5 years. My heart goes out to those of you who are struggling with maladies, autism, and other issues that cannabis has helped. But I also must say, our youngest son, Mark, died in 2010 of a heroin overdose. I did CPR. We went through all kinds of issues with him. But his struggles began with using recreational marijuana, which is an entryway drug. And I'm quoting some statistics for you from the Citizen magazine of April 2018. You know probably that California and Colorado first passed medical marijuana, gateway proposition as it were, in 2000. Like California, a few years later, 2006, they weighed in on a recreational marijuana but rejected it. And like California, similar measure surfaced 6 years later in 2012, this time passing and going into effect at the start of 2014. Not surprisingly, harmful results followed. And here's some statistics. Marijuana-related traffic deaths more than doubled from 2013, from 55 to 2016, 125. This is in Colorado, representing 21% of all traffic deaths. Over that 4-year period, the average number of pot-related traffic deaths increased 66% compared to the 4-year average from 2009 to 2012. The average yearly rate of marijuana-related hospitalizations rose 72% after recreational pot was legalized. In 2014-15, Colorado youth were reported using pot in the previous month was 55% higher than the national average, the highest in the nation, up from the 4th highest in 2011 and 12, and 14th highest in 2005 and 6. I caution Wisconsinites, again, let's use our energies to find other means of helping people with these medical issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Troy Knutsen's up.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I am here to speak about the referendum that you're considering. I have several concerns. I certainly feel the pain and have a lot of compassion for the people who have shared their personal stories. And that is certainly an issue that our society needs to face and to deal with. But my specific concern is with this very referendum that's before you today. I think it's very poorly written, and some of the wording is very poorly chosen. So I'll go into that in detail. As you know, who serve on the board, you have the Wisconsin statutes, Chapter 59 gives you a lot of authority, restrictions, and guidelines what you can do as county government. In Chapter 59, the only mention of this substance is using the word marijuana. I think almost everyone, if you walked up to them on the street, know what the word marijuana means. I'm not so sure about the word cannabis. One of the individuals that spoke up before me talked about an oil, which is a derivative of the plant. There's different uses, there's different products. I think it's a mistake to use a different word than what's already used in state statute. So I find the word cannabis confusing, and I'm troubled by it. My second item of concern is that there are 3 choices on the ballot. Choose one of the 3. If you choose 2, you have overvoted your ballot, and your input does not count on that issue. If it doesn't count on that issue, you don't get to have your voice. You're telling me, I hear you saying you want input from the community. I'm concerned that it's a confusing referendum. People who are voting in person, that will have to program the voting machines to reject that ballot if it's been marked with more than 1. And the person in person will be able to correct that with the help of a poll worker. If you're voting absentee, mailing in your ballot, you're going to vote is not going to count. It's going to be discontinued. I think it's a big mistake to have a choice of 3 items, and I think it's confusing for our voters. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. At this time, just so we don't miss anybody, if there's anybody that we've missed tonight on public comment on or off the agenda, if they want to step forward at this time, it'll be fine. So I'll say it.
Ask if anybody crossed the hall.
They'll hear it. Yeah. So did we miss anybody for public comment? If we did, I'll say it one more time. Did we miss anybody for public comment? Evidently, we didn't miss anybody. So thank you, everyone, for your comments tonight. We'll move forward with our consent agenda. It's from the minutes of previous meeting, June 5th. Date of our next meeting will be September 4th. We have a rezoning. We have a excuse me here. Yep, we have some rezoning ordinance to amend the comprehensive zoning ordinance, section 15, T28N, R18W, Town of Kinnickinnick, amending the comprehensive zoning ordinance, section 5, T29N, RW, R15W, Town of Springfield, and the amendment, the comprehensive zoning ordinance, section 15, T30N, R18W, Town of Richmond. Need a motion. Supervisor Coulter, second. Supervisor Brinkman. Discussion.
It does seem like every one of these meetings I come to, my district's getting smaller.
It's just a storage unit, Andy. It's just a storage unit.
No other discussion? We'll vote. have to apologize. I think I missed the last part of this, number 4 under consent agenda. And I'll ask everybody, resolution approving alteration of supervisor district boundary, city of Richmond, town of Richmond, Anderson property, and the resolution approving alteration of supervisor district boundary, city of Richmond, town of Star Prairie, DOT, and Meyer property. If it's all right with everybody, I'll let that go the way it is unless we want to have a separate vote on that. Is everybody okay with that? I don't see any objections, so we'll move forward then. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, point of inquiry. We've had a lot of discussion earlier in the meeting about the pros and cons of the cannabis issue. We've got 30 people from the public here who spoke to that or are interested in it, 30, 40, 50 people. I wonder if we should consider moving the item on the agenda that's near the end of our meeting to something like now, so those people can be here, participate, see us participate, and get that item off the agenda while a large number of people are here and not waste their time, let them get home for the evening.
Well, we usually don't move business items up unless the
Ask if the board has any objection.
it's up to the board if they want to move that one up. So, everybody okay with moving that to the top? Okay, we'll move that, we'll go down to business items. And the resolution placing referendum question on the fall ballot regarding legalization of cannabis. I need a motion. Supervisor Peterson, second by Supervisor Hanson. Go ahead, Supervisor Peterson.
Just wanted to comment for the rest of the board. Our committee brought this forward, I think most with the concern that we thought this needed to be forwarded to our voters to give them a chance to have a thought on this, because we're not trying to, all of us on the committee probably have different feelings either way on this, just as the folks in the audience, but we think that it needs to be addressed in some form or other. And the language in it, I'll take responsibility. We, several of us on the committee thought that that we would wordsmith our own language on that, and that got overlooked. And I'll accept responsibility for that. I believe Supervisor Mutaden would like to offer an amendment to that wording, so I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Supervisor Mutaden.
Yes, Chair Larson, I move to substitute for the pending resolution with the draft resolution that's provided in our meeting packet in the meeting portal on packet page 150, which I also have in written form here if that's needed.
So this is an amendment to the future.
So it's basically the resolution that initially was adopted by the administration committee, as Supervisor Peterson had mentioned, was one that was a sample resolution and really was not fitting for our county as well as we wanted to. We were going to draft a different resolution, but that one got adopted, I guess, before that happened. And so this is the resolution, which has been in our agenda packet for several weeks now. It was passed out also to supervisors to preview. And this is a better representation of what we're looking for our county for this resolution. So people should review that and.
Basically a motion to amend to replace one resolution with the other.
So this is a motion.
So that's a motion to amend the original to
substitute.
Second from Supervisor Hanson. So it's to amend from the original.
It's a substitution.
It's essentially the same, it means the same thing. A motion to substitute replaces one resolution in its entirety. It's treated just exactly as a motion to amend.
Okay. So any discussion on that amendment, which is replacing one for the other?
Just a point of clarification to the corporate counsel. Can further amendments be made to this amendment?
Yes. Hanson, I believe.
Yeah, so is there any more discussion on that amendment to replace the one resolution with the other one? Not seeing any discussion. We have a motion and a second to amend the original. So we'll vote on that amendment. Bob? One no, one abstain, and the rest are yeses, so that passes. So that, I would go back to the original resolution then.
Now this has replaced the original resolution, so this is the main motion or resolution before the body now.
Yep. So now we have to vote on that main resolution unless we have something else on the floor. Supervisor Fosterlane?
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, I'd like to just make a motion right now that we, in consideration of both the Health and Human Services recommendations and the public protection, that we table this or postpone it indefinitely.
I'll second.
There's a second from Supervisor Strand. Open for discussion.
Mr. Chairman, question to you or the corporate counsel. What is the latest date that this board can act on an issue and get it on the November ballot as a referendum issue?
I would defer to the clerk, but I think it's August 20-something. Is that correct, Cindy?
The county clerk needs to receive it by August 28th.
Just another inquiry. We have an amendment pending, and it's been seconded. Can that also be amended at this time? Or do we have discussion on it now and perhaps amendment?
The motion to postpone indefinitely cannot be amended, but it can be debated as to why it is to be postponed indefinitely.
So is there any other discussion? Supervisor Long.
Okay, at the risk of repeating myself in some of the other meetings, but I'm totally in favor of medical marijuana. I've seen it work wonders in a lot of my relatives. And I think the whole recreational thing, it's going to come to Wisconsin eventually anyhow. It's pretty inevitable. But what really concerns me is that we're really rushing this along before we've really fully vetted this issue. I'm concerned from a public health standpoint. In particular, I've said this before, but we have a significant meth problem here in St. Croix County, and I'd like to know, what's the impact going to be? What are the consequences going to be of that situation if we legalize marijuana? I just think that it's wrong to rush ahead with this. I think we need to also respect the views of Health and Human Services, respect the views of public protection, respect the views of our district attorney, and also our sheriff's office. So I think delaying this, and it needs further discussion. I'm absolutely convinced of that. But I think we need to look at this objectively and make sure we take our time to really discuss it to make sure that we know exactly what we're doing when we go down that road.
Any other discussion? Supervisor Motatum.
We are simply allowing the public to voice their opinion. We are not legalizing here. I see no reason to delay. The Health and Human Services, one of the reasons that they recommended that delay was specifically based upon the wording of the resolution, which we have changed. So I don't see that as even valid. The Public Protection Committee, the reason they stated the delay was really based upon misrepresentation of the referendum as being dangerous to our community. I do not believe gathering data is dangerous to our community. I have received about 16 correspondence. Of that 16 correspondence, 10 have asked me to vote yes on this referendum. Okay, that's 66% of the respondents that have, the people that have contacted me, just, you know, just my constituents, people who live in our county. As we can see tonight, of the people that spoke, I had 8 people specifically say vote yes on this referendum, 2 specifically say vote no, and a handful that just stated whether they're pro-legalization or anti-legalization. If we are going to vote no on this referendum or kill this referendum, we better have a very good reason, and I do not see a good reason. The public wants this. Let them be heard. We are not legalizing cannabis with this referendum. We are simply finding out, what does St. Croix County residents want? What is their preference? This isn't about our personal opinion. This isn't even about the sheriff's personal opinion, the DA's personal opinion, or their public stance. I am not, as a county supervisor, I was not elected to represent the police, the sheriff, the district attorney. I was elected to represent the people and be a voice for the people. I will be voting yes, and I would ask my fellow supervisors that if the people are asking us to do this and you're voting no, who are you representing?
Supervisor Hanson.
The motion that's on the table, right, or on the floor right here, is the table is indefinitely, and that's a disingenuous avoidance of making a decision, and it would be unconscionable. We need to have the courage to go ahead and give our opinion, and that's what this entire referendum idea is to give people the chance to give their opinion. So we should see it through, give the citizens the chance to give their opinion, but to just set it aside and make it go away is disingenuous. We need to vote on this, and if it fails, it fails. And I'm willing to take that chance. Let's just go through with it.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I guess from what I've heard, this cannot be amended, and this vote would take place on the delay as a priority item. But what I would have liked to have done was to further amend the language that Supervisor Mutaden suggested to us. I don't think you need any of the whereas clauses. And to be honest, I would have dropped option A, the overall legalization. I would have just presented, should cannabis be legal for medical purposes or maintain the status quo? But under the process we're going through, I'm not able to offer that amendment. I think most of the folks that spoke here tonight weren't overly excited about overall legalization of it, but they spoke to the medical uses of it, which one of the witnesses indicated 30 of the states have approved. And so I'm just disappointed that we would be precluded from considering an option to limit this referendum item to those 2 options for the voter.
The supervisor would have the ability to amend that resolution, which is your preference to do, if you can get that back on the floor, but that's not what's before the body. The motion before the body is to postpone indefinitely. So if your preference is to try to get this back on the floor, then that should determine how your vote would be.
Supervisor Foster, I'll be back.
Yeah, just a couple more comments. I understand entirely, the concept of voicing an opinion, and appreciate that, but we have no authority to address this issue on a county level. And so, and frankly, this is really, it's politically motivated, but you would get the impression by listening to the testimony that Wisconsin does not allow CBD to be prescribed by a physician, with a certificate from a physician, and but that's not true. CBD is available in Wisconsin with a certificate by a physician, And so, you know, some of the testimony, I think, you know, is maybe misinformed. It does show that essentially there's a lot of information that is not correct out there, that we don't necessarily have the best information available. We're operating under a wording, you know, that you know, is proposed. You know, it came from you know, a particular source, and of course, you know, we've got different wording now, and I do think, you know, that you know, Supervisor Fiedler's comments are certainly worthy of consideration, because you know, that helps us zero in a little bit on what we're actually talking about, because so much of this is not really very well clarified. What is cannabis? Is it marijuana? Is it smoked? Is it CBD oil? You know, all of that is unclear. So I think there's just so many bits of information that we do not have here, and so therefore I'm saying that this needs further study, and we should respect our people in the county who are working on this issue every day.
Supervisor Peterson, you had something?
I just would like clarification. So if we would vote down this proposal to table permanently, then others would have an option to amend as they so. Thank you.
That's correct, yes.
Any other discussion? If I don't see any more discussion, it's time to vote. And a yes vote means it'll be postponed. Any questions on that? Supervisor Nordstrom.
Could we just make clear, because there was some discussion about advocating voting yes, that in fact voting yes on this will end the resolution. Voting no will continue it, so everybody knows exactly what they want to do.
Yep. So,
point of clarification then. Also, if you vote no, you have the opportunity to amend the main motion one more time. As I understand it, you can amend a main motion at least twice, according to the rules. Is that right?
Yes. So, I'm not sure about the number of limitations, but there can be amendments considered after. So if the motion to postpone fails, then the pending resolution can be amended, yes.
okay. So if there's other discussion, we'll vote at this time. Maybe we'll vote. What? Yep. We're 9 to 8, right? So the motion passes. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
So the count is 9 to 8, so the motion passes to postpone. So we will move forward with the rest of our agenda. And presentation and recognition to the West Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, Lynn Nelson, that has canceled for tonight. Will be at our September meeting instead. Appointments. I believe our administrator, Townsend, has some appointments.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I would like to recommend to the board the appointment of Andrea Jorgensen, who is the Director of Communications and Programs for the Hudson Area Chamber of Commerce and Tourism Bureau to replace Commissioner Blake Fry on the Transit Commission. The name that was included in the background paragraph in the packet was incorrect. I don't know how that name appeared in your fact sheet, but it's incorrect. I'm recommending the appointment of Andrea Jorgensen. Thank you.
I have a motion to appoint.
So
Supervisor Osnes made a motion. Does this have a second? Supervisor Peavy, second. Any discussion? Not seen any, and we'll vote at this time. Cindy, I can't find my people. I'm appointing to the library in there. How about the ethics?
Vote, you need to vote.
What? And that's all yeses. Thank you. And for the library board, I have an appointment. And Katie Went from Richmond would be a 2-year term. Do I have a motion to approve that? Supervisor Akhtaroff, second. Supervisor Peterson. Discussion on that appointment. No discussion? The motion, second on the floor. We'll vote on that. Cindy, that's Cindy, she has my, yeah, I don't find it in here. Thank you. I know it's here somewhere, I just. You got it right here. Okay, thank you. And that was all yeses, so thank you, everyone. That passes. Then I have another appointment for the Ethics Board. We had to find people for that. Yeah, I guess I did. I had some help. I still need one citizen member, but I have 3 people for that. James Parent is an attorney from St. Croix County for a 3-year term. Dr. Neil Melby is a retired doctor from Richmond for a 2-year term. And Jerry Wright from Citizen for a 1-year term from here in Hudson. So I haven't been able to find another person. I'm still looking for that alternate in case they're short. But I want to bring this forward tonight. So do I have a motion to approve that? Supervisor Miller, do I have a second? Supervisor Peavy. I have a motion and a second. Do I, any discussion? No discussion? There's a motion and a second. If there's no discussion, we'll vote. Supervisor Motatum, you gonna? Okay, thank you. And that's all yeses, thank you. We have annual department reports, and if it's all right with the board, our Veteran Service Officer has another meeting to go to And if we can move that up to number 1, that's all right with everybody? So we'll let Phil come forward and do his report then.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much, and thank you very much, County Board. I appreciate you getting me on the schedule so I can go over to the American Legion in New Richmond and chat with them. I just want to say, one, I want to say thank you to the Veteran Service offices that are around, or the organizations, the VFWs, the American Legions. They're unbelievable for our mission. I want to thank St. Croix County for giving us the tools that we need to succeed in our office. And I also want to personally thank Jerry and Kathy. Those are the people who really make the office run. Those are the 2 other individuals who work through the Veteran Service Office. But you have my department report. I would be willing to take any questions at this time if you would like it.
No questions?
Okay.
Thank you very much. See you, Phil. We have Robbie up from Highway next.
Good evening. You guys all have the report in front of you. The one thing I would like to plug is Highway is working closely with the Sheriff's Office on our County Highway Local Safety Plan that will be rolling out this fall and into the winter. And if you see a public meeting, please attend as we consider the safety of our county highways throughout the county. With that, any questions on the annual report? I'm willing to take any, and I'm available at any time if there's follow-up questions.
Okay. Any questions for Robbie on Highway? Supervisor Peterson.
More of a comment. I'd just like to state that I'm very pleased with our commissioner. He's been very proactive, and he's watching out for us. Thank you, Robbie.
Thank you. No questions? Supervisor Fosterling.
I have a question. Something that come up, from a couple of constituents actually, is that the access to sand and salt, and apparently you're able to buy it in Minnesota for homeowners who want to use it or whatever. I'm not sure if there's any retail outlet in the area or whatever, but I don't know if has there been ever consideration in terms of that as a service from the county?
Statutorily, we can provide salt sand to our municipal partners.
Okay.
We can't provide it to any outside source for those purposes. So
Yep.
that would preclude us from doing
Okay.
that type of service. So.
Okay. Thank you.
No other questions?
Robbie, can you give us just a quick update on how we're doing at the Baldwin site?
Absolutely. We're vertical. So the crane has been setting precast concrete quite rapidly within the next 7 weeks. The plan is to have all the walls in place and the roof superstructure in place. By the end of October, the goal is to have a completely enclosed facility so we can work through the winter months. We are still on pace for a June opening for the facility, and we are still on time and under budget. We did have to fight through a soil correction. If you've heard a little bit of that, we did have part of our contingency be applied to a soil correction for our cold storage facility. It wasn't completely unknown, but we did fight our way through that, and we are moving forward.
Okay. Any other questions? Thanks, Rob. We have our county supervisor's annual report. Brian Halling.
Is that on? Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, for allowing me to give you a quick update tonight. For any of you that don't know me, my name is Brian Halling. I'm the St. Croix County Surveyor. And you should have received my written report. I will just give a couple brief highlights. One of the things in 2017, along with the new county website, we actually implemented a county surveyor's webpage, which was very handy for the private surveyors or private citizens they can access all the surveyor's records. So rather than call me for the information. They can survey all night long and get the information at 2 in the morning if they need. So that's been a great asset for the county. One thing that it also, though, with that county surveyor webpage, made the county surveyor's office a little more popular. And I thought it was because of the crowd here, but apparently that wasn't that. But I think what it is the people now, they Google county or land surveyor in St. Croix County, and apparently my email and number must show up, because I'm not getting all the calls that I was getting from the surveyors, but we're getting a bunch of them from the public. And I guess that's not a bad thing, but it's definitely the website has been an asset, though. Just another thing that I usually give you guys, one of our main responsibilities is that we review all the surveys that go through the county and do a technical review to make sure that they comply with statutes and whatnot. And so I've kind of, just so you can see the trends of the surveys that come through. Back in 2016, we had 114 CSMs go through our office. In 2017, we had 128. And in 2018 through July, we already had 84, so projected out, that would total about 144. So you can just kind of see the trend, that there's a lot going on out there. And if you ask any of the surveyors, they'll tell you the same thing. They are swamped. So other than that, I just wanted to give a shout out to, if any of you have any interest at all in any of the public land survey system, there's an educational opportunity that the Wisconsin Society of Land Surveyors sponsors each year. There's an annual, they call it Meet Me at the Corner, and it's more or less a field trip for people to be able to educate themselves. It's free of charge, but you may have to travel. It's typically held like in April. This year it was in Rothschild, and basically they'll take you out, and it's, like I said, it's kind of a field trip where you go out, you actually see what the surveyor did. We find, one of the old original corners, and then they take you all the way through the process to the GPSing and finding coordinates on them. So if anybody's interested, just feel free to contact me and I'll set you up with more information. Other than that, if there's any questions, as always, my office is always open. So if you have any questions, anything comes up, concerns, feel free to contact us.
Any questions for Brian? Not seeing none. Thanks, Brian.
All right, thank you.
Register of Deeds, annual report. Beth Papps, please.
Thank you all for having me here again this year. All the duties in the Register of Deeds office are statutory. There is nothing that we do that we're not required to do. If we look at some of the numbers that are coming in, as Brian had mentioned, the certified survey maps, recording of those is up. Recording of actual subdivisions is up. Recording of condominium plats is up. All those are good signs for the economy. More mortgages. The sales dollars are a little bit higher. Net new construction, those numbers came in last week, I believe, and those numbers are higher. So all good signs for our economy. We're constantly striving to improve what we do through technology, changes in office procedures, since what we do is so driven by the statute. We look for ways to actually improve the things that we do on a daily basis. So they always say the Register of Deeds office, nothing ever changes. That's not true. We're constantly striving to change through the use of our IT department and new software, things like that. So I hope you enjoyed the little differences in the county maps, or the changes in the county boundaries that happened in the early 1800s. And I certainly look forward to being a part of what happens in St. Croix County over the upcoming years. Everything that happens in my department is through the hard work and the dedication of my staff. They are truly the ones that need to be thanked. They are the face that's at the counter every day. They're the ones down and dirty doing all the hard work in that department. And I'm just, all their good work just certainly reflects on me and my department. So does anybody have any questions for my department at all?
Supervisor Doctor.
Yeah, I just have one on page 136 under H, where it's issues, concerns, and restraints.
Yep.
The fifth bullet down about deadlines that use a form that doesn't meet and whatnot. Like, is that happening in many counties? I mean, is the state, so, I mean, what's going on?
The fifth bullet there under number H, a lot of that are internal things that this county is doing. We're doing the branding, we're doing the new website design, we have the new ERP kind of all happening at once. And for all of those things, there's things that roll down to the department level. And sometimes those are just really difficult for us. You know, we kind of got a job to do in our department. The recording the documents, reviewing those certified survey maps, plats, subdivisions, all that work. And so sometimes these things, you know, they have deadlines that, you know, need to be faced too. And so it becomes a constraint of some sort in our department. It's a lot coming in at once. A lot of that has rolled down from me that would normally take care of a lot of those things. I've had to push some of that down into the staff too. So, and they do an amazing job.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
And they're all good things. The branding and all of that, they're all good things. Don't get me wrong. It's just, they're a little time consuming and a lot of it at once. A lot of things.
Any other questions for Beth?
Stop by and see me anytime.
Yep.
Thank you all.
I'll ask you all if you want to take a little short break for a few minutes. Keep going. What? Keep going. Break?
Somebody said break over there.
Somebody said break. Somebody said not.
Let's do the financial report.
What?
Let's do the financial report.
Yeah. Not everybody's bladder is the same, Roger. I think we take a break.
Take a break?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll take a 10-minute break. I'll set the timer on it so we can. We'll go back into open session in our meeting so we can finish this up tonight.
Financial reports were in the
Financial
packet. Are
report.
there any questions? I'm going to take the lead from Robbie. These are the new and, I should say, the new and improved financial forms. They show revenues and expenditures per some guidance and input from the work group that was established by the board, the administration committee, to review these reports and offer suggestions for improvement. So we show them lumped together by oversight committee, by standing committee, revenues and expenditures. We're still working through some bugs, but they're getting better and better each month. The committees, the standing committees will actually see a little more detail. They'll see one more layer of the onion as a standing committee dig into it a little bit more, but these will be the standardized monthly financial reports. But look through them. If you have questions, always contact me or Ken Witt. We'll get them answered for you. And then we also show a summary of the CIP as well, where things stand for each project. So, yes.
Supervisor Hanson.
Yes.
So where we see some really kind of wild percentages off, is that because they're new categories that have been added and these line items weren't populated before?
That's part of it. That's part of it. And you're mostly going to see those wide variances in the revenue section. And the main reason for that is because starting in 2018, we're showing tax levy for each department, say for the Corporation Counsel's office. I'll just pick on him. For revenues, with the new system, we're showing how much levy, how much actual tax levy is appropriated to each department, and that's showing up as a revenue. Prior years, we lumped all the tax levy into one line item, but this now, the new system, we can break it out So if you ask me, how much do we levy for the Register of Deeds office, or maybe that's not a good example because they're a revenue producer, but say for Corporation Counsel or IT, John's waving his hand, how much levy do we apply to IT? We can tell you. And it'll actually be in the report that you'll be getting. So, any other, Judy?
Just, I'm going to get this from a question, another person on the committee I was on asked to say, is there anything we should be concerned about since it does look so unbelievably different?
We, the finance staff, Ken Witt, myself, department heads, we review these reports in detail. If there were any irregularities or similes or things that we would need to report out in terms of corrective action needed to be taken financially, we would certainly report those out, and we don't see any. So.
Thanks.
As I look at this, and I know we've talked about this a little bit, I just want some guidance on how, as a supervisor, say under expenses, administration expenses, I'm assuming actual fiscal year 17 expenses were 19 million and change, and the budget for 18 is 29 million and change. And in my prior lives, when I wanted to see how we were doing and where we were going and where we'd been, I would look back at prior years. And I guess what I'm learning here is I'm just simply not going to have that reference.
Well, okay, so I'm looking at packet page. I don't know if you have the same numbers, but okay, for under administrator, are you looking under the expenditures?
Administration expenses, it goes 16, 31 million, 17, 19 million, 18, 29 million, 18 year-to-date 10 million. And I don't know how to interpret what that means.
Okay, that means that for fiscal year 18, the total budget for the administrative, those departments was 29.4 million.
That I got.
Okay.
It's the prior year. In other words, why do we even look at 16 and 17? It's almost as deceiving as it is helpful. I mean, there's a $10 million delta between 17 and 18 in a $30-some million budget. Why bother? We should take those two columns off and just look at 18 and the expenses and go forward.
I'm trying to, Ken, are you looking at the, we need to include 16 and 17 because that's those are benchmark years. Now the 2018, yes, they're in different accounts and it's changed, but I don't see where the.
If I could continue, look at community development underneath it. 16 is 4 million, 17 is 4 million, 18 is 8 million. It's double.
That one I can explain.
Okay. Well, we're making progress.
Okay, go ahead.
Right. So that one you can see the 410 SCRCP capital projects. That's the land purchase that we just did. So that was at a budgeted expense. So that's not a normal thing to spend $3 million on land purchases.
Okay.
So that's why you see that year jump up. Now, as far as 16 and 17, we had actually had a very healthy debate, the previous finance director and I, about whether to bring those years forward or not. And so we decided to bring them because you might as well, because we could. But you're absolutely right about the comparability of the prior year data. And so that had been a lengthy discussion about doing it or not.
All right, just so we're forewarned.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, thank you, Pat.
Yep.
We'll move forward. Item number 2 under business, resolution to provide mitigation funds to the town of St. Joe Waldorf land acquisition adjacent to the Homestead Parklands on Perch Lake. And Supervisor Hanson, would you like to take that one over and make a motion on it?
Absolutely.
And I need a second for that motion.
I so move.
Supervisor
Second.
Nordstrand. We have a motion second. I'll let you take the lead on that.
Actually, I'd like to invite Ellen up.
Actually, I'll just say a couple
All right,
words, and then if
okay.
you have questions, we can get Ellen up. This is a resolution coming from the Community Development Committee authorizing the use of hazard mitigation funding in the town of St. Joseph for the Waldorf land acquisition. These are utilizing state of Wisconsin, state of Minnesota funds that were set aside for the purchase and acquisition of bluff land along the St. Croix River as part of the St. Croix River crossing mitigation dollars that were set aside by the two different states to provide for mitigation along the St. Croix River. This is utilizing some of those dollars and authorizing the expenditure of that. We actually close on the property on Friday. Any questions? We can have Ellen come up if you have questions. No questions?
No questions on that? Well, we have a motion and a second on the floor. So if there's no questions, we'll vote on that. And that's all yeses that pass. Thank you. Our next one is authorizing loan to the town of St. Joe for the amount of $508,000. Supervisor Peterson, motion. Second on that. Supervisor Fosterling, second.
Same thing. I'll just say a few words, and then if you have specific questions, Alan Denzer can come up. I call this a companion resolution to the one you just approved. To make this whole acquisition go through, the town of St. Joseph is also contributing some of the acquisition dollars that were granted in the same pot of money that I just referred to the town of St. Joseph in addition to St. Croix County. You just approved $310,000. The town of St. Joseph is also a partner in this acquisition, and they have a grant that has also been approved from the state of Wisconsin in this amount. It's a slightly different because of some closing costs, but for all purposes, it's the same amount of the $508,000 loan, but they won't be getting that grant, I think, for about 2 more months. Like I said, this closing is scheduled for Friday. We are going to loan the town of St. Joseph this amount, and they will pay it back after they receive the grant awards. And we have legal documents that will make this all, this transfer of monies legal, but you would be approving a loan for approximately 2 months to the town of St. Joe in this amount. They will reimburse the county once they get the grant from the state. We are charging 2% interest on the loan, which is about equal to what I think, Ken, that was the amount that we thought was fair. The town of St. Joe is thrilled with this proposal, and Tom Spaniel was here earlier. He's been at every single meeting, committee meeting where this has been heard, both community development and the administration committee. Tom is a great cheerleader for that town, and he is thrilled that the board is going to provide these funds to the town on a short-term basis to make this whole deal come together. And he couldn't be here. He was here earlier this evening and then had to leave. But I'm sure he would really put a push in for this if he was here. Thank you.
Any other discussion or questions? That's the end, we'll vote. Okay, now we can vote. That's all yeses, that passes. Thank you. Our next resolution, item 4, is resolution of support of the establishment of the Town of Troy Agricultural Enterprise Area. And I need a motion to approve that resolution. Supervisor Hanson, second. Supervisor Achterhoff. A discussion on that? Is that coming out of community development again? Anybody want to explain that resolution? Ellen, you want to come forward and explain that?
The town of Troy is asking for a resolution of support from this county board in order to establish an ag enterprise area in the township. The township ag enterprise areas have a lot of very specific requirements from the state of Wisconsin, and what they allow the town to do is have an area where the farmers in that area are able to obtain additional tax credits than what they would get just under farmland preservation zoning or just under an agreement. And this adds up and it increases it for them. We already have 2 AEAs in St. Croix County, ag enterprise areas, one in the town of Brush River and one up that is in the town of Star Prairie and also a little bit in the town of Somerset. This would be a small one, similar size to the one in the town of Somerset, Star Prairie, down in the town of Troy. Any questions?
Any questions? Not seeing any. We have a motion and a second on the floor. We'll vote. That's all yeses. Thank you. Our next one is ordinance to adopt the St. Croix County Solid Waste and Recycling Management Plan. I have a motion, Supervisor Hanson, second. Supervisor Motatum. Discussion?
This ordinance is coming from the Community Development Committee. It's been through several committee meetings. There was a public hearing, a lot of input into this whole process. Megan Hines, who is the director of that program, is here this evening. If you have specific questions regarding this, but it's been through the ringer, and it's a good program, and we ask for your support. Mr. Coulter.
Supervisor Coulter.
Yeah, I just have a observation. I've been reading lots of articles of late in many of the magazines and newspapers, Wall Street Journal, most notably, that most of what we put in our recycling bins goes to the landfill. And I don't know if you others have noticed that too. So, for instance, in the village of North Hudson, we pay to have it sorted and separated, and then we send it to the exact same place. We could save some money, not have it sorted, and send it to the landfill directly. And the primary reason is because recycling has become so popular and so ubiquitous that there isn't enough market for all the recycled material. So I'm just going to suggest that we put on our thinking caps about how we might address some of these issues. And I know markets will vary, but food for thought for the future.
If we might allow Megan to address that comment, I think would be appropriate.
So there are laws regarding what can and cannot be sent to the landfill. The Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources does have landfill bans on a variety of items. Many things that I would consider are normal kind of curbside items, you know, cardboard, paper, 1 and 2 plastics. Technically, plastics number 3 through 7 are also banned from landfill, but there are exemptions because in some communities it's just not feasible to recycle those items. And sometimes the markets for those items are a little bit more volatile than the number 1 and number 2 plastics. Other things include glass, tin cans, aluminum cans, those type of items. Also tires, electronics, appliances, used oil and oil filters are all banned from the landfill in the state of Wisconsin. There has been a lot of national press regarding recycling. China has put forth some trade restrictions which have impacted some of the distribution of recyclables globally. They're working hard to get more domestic markets, but there are some influxes of material domestically. Luckily in our area, generally speaking in the Midwest, we have a very good market for paper due to our very strong paper mill industry in Wisconsin. So most of the impacts are more on the coasts where they are typically shipping them internationally versus domestically. So here, as far as St. Croix County, the county program itself does not actually market any recyclables, so we are a step back from that volatility, and the funding in our program is not affected by our ability to market materials, because we are not marketing materials. It's all a privatized industry in St. Croix County.
Any other questions? Supervisor Nordstrand.
Did I read correctly the last time this plan was updated in 1981?
Correct.
So obviously that can't be good, that we have a 40-year-old plan. What is the half-life of one of these plans appropriately? I mean, I'm concerned just in the short time I've been on the board at the size and scope of all the plans.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've seen 175-page plan, 50-page plans, 200-page plans, and I know it must take an enormous amount of effort to produce these things. And I'm kind of curious as to what's the planned recycle time for the recycle plan.
So to kind of address your first comment, it is an old plan. There is no statutory requirement to update this plan. Why we decided to update it was, one, it is very old. We enjoy writing plans. We like... What? We do like that. We wanted to have a guidance document for the future. The plan is really not changing much of what we're doing currently. It really is summarizing what we currently have done, briefly focused on where we've been in the past, and then kind of setting some goals and some benchmarks that we want to work to achieve. This is a guidance document. Nothing in this document is binding. They're just things we want to work towards and have those goals and be public and transparent with our constituents of what we're working towards and what we see the vision of recycling being in St. Croix County. That being said, we are having a planning horizon of 25 years on this plan. We feel that that's this okay time frame as far as needing to update it. Balancing, I am a part-time employee, a 0.7 FTE, and I'm the only employee that works solely on recycling in the county. So having a balance of where my time is spent, not only on planning activities, but on actual program activities. We feel like 25 years is an appropriate time frame for this plan.
I just want to throw out the idea that perhaps we ought to think about an economy of scale on plans. In other words, I looked through it. It looked comprehensive. It had a lot of, you know, dates in it that 20 years from now, nobody will care about at all. Maybe they'll care for the next 5 years. After that, it'll be irrelevant. What if we had, instead of 100-page plans, we had 10-page, 15-page plans that were updated regularly, that provided guidance? And I'm not saying this is everything that we can do, but I'm just concerned that, you know, if we wait so long to update it, they become irrelevant. And then what's the point of having done it in the first place?
Can I add,
Yeah, go
please?
for it.
So let me just address this a little more thoroughly. First of all, this isn't the only plan that addresses solid waste and recycling in the county. It's also a small chapter in our comprehensive plan. And what we wanted to do was do a little better job, bring it up to date. There are various reasons why that document wasn't updated back from 1981. I can't speak to all of them. It wasn't my decision for most of the past few years. When I became director, I wanted it updated. I wanted it put it on our list of to-do things, and we got it done.
If you take a look at how all of our plans are organized, and this plan is organized in that way also, we do the background information so that we can inform our decisions and inform the committee and give them information to work from. Then we create a very slim, very small front section, which we call Volume 1, which focuses on the goals, objectives, policies, and a very small summary of what's actually in the plan. That document we move to the front, and that makes the focus for directing what we do for the next however many years. We wouldn't intend for this document to be left on the shelf for 25 years. None of our documents are left that long. However, when we give a time horizon as to how long we think things are going, every plan is it depends. The outdoor rec plan was 5 years. Some of our plans are 20 years, some are 25. So we have a horizon that we look on and we try to address. So I would say if you focus on what we create as a very slim Volume 1, that's the plan. The other is the background information that informs the decisions at the time it's made, and then after that, the plan going forward is the slim Volume 1.
Go ahead.
My suggestion stands.
Okay. Any other questions? Supervisor V.
Thank you. I got one, and I usually catch these earlier on the ag side. On packet page 300 of whatever, we're talking about the Sharps program, and it says, and I'm quoting here, the Sharps program is for household use only, but then it goes on to say pharmacies, commercial entities, and agricultural producers, and then it uses the word must dispose of their Sharps through mail-back programs or contact with Sharps disposal services. I would suggest that that be should or something other than must, because must is not appropriate there. The agriculture producers cannot be told how they have to get rid of their Sharps. So I would suggest should or another less stringent word.
Any other questions? No? No more discussion? We'll vote on the resolution. That's all yeses. Thank you. Now, I'm going to be reading a little bit here. We got a long resolution. Number 6 is resolution approving amendments to the Town of Hudson zoning ordinance 105, 12C, 6A, 7, 105, 13E1G, and 105-14D1G, amending exterior wall finish regulations 105, 13F6, amending building heights regulations 105-12H, 105-13F5, 105-14G1, amending structure setbacks 105-19B1B, 105-19B2A, 105B2B, 105-19B3A, 105-19B3B, 105B19-4A, 105-19B4B, and 105-19B5B, amending structure setbacks from highways, and 105-19F, amending access driveway regulations.
Bingo.
Motion made by Supervisor Hanson. I need a second. Second by Supervisor Osnes. Supervisor Hanson.
The town of Hudson has its own zoning. It doesn't participate in county zoning. Therefore, it must bring its zoning changes to the county for approval. The town of Hudson has approved all of these changes, brought them to the Community Development Department and the Community Development Committee, which we looked over, saw that they approved them, and forwarded them to you for your approval. And hopefully you'll say okie dokie and we can let them have their changes. Thank you.
Okay.
That would be YES.
Any other questions? If not, we'll vote. And that was all yeses. Thank you. Number 7, resolution setting library tax levy for 2018. You want to take that?
Is there a motion?
I'll get a motion to approve that. Supervisor Peterson, do I have the second? Supervisor Motatum? Now.
Yeah, this is the annual resolution that the board approves prior to the formulation of the 2019 budget, which we're in the process of doing. This will establish the amount that will be included in the administrator's recommended budget for the library levy. It's a levy of $1,114,978. The resolution is attached. We also attach a spreadsheet showing the levy apportionment for each of the libraries in St. Croix County, which is attached to your to the resolution. So I don't know if there are any questions. This comes from the Administration Committee, recommends your approval.
Supervisor Long?
So this has kind of been bothering me for quite a while, and I know it's a complex issue, so I tried to do my homework on this and try to get a little better handle of what was going on with the Hudson Area Joint Library. So I had all this good information and all these facts, and I forgot my notes, so that's probably going to work to your advantage tonight. But let me give you a synopsis of what I found. Statutorily, and Scott, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but what I found is municipalities are required to fund a certain amount or appropriate a certain amount for their libraries out of their budget, which is called an exempt amount, which in order to avoid a county library tax. So what happened is there was a 10-year period. Oh, I'm sorry, and this is based on property values, if I'm correct. So what happened for a 10-year period, the calculation was incorrect for Hudson. They weren't appropriating enough. So 10 years later, 2012, I believe, they discovered the error, and at the time, they were only funding like half of what they should be. So it was a mistake. And it was also a mistake that was reviewed, and the numbers were approved by the county. So the county was somewhat culpable in this mistake as well. So basically, this created a financial crisis with the Hudson Library because they weren't funding it enough. And Hudson was already up against their levy limit. So the trustees were kind of backed into a corner. They're like, and one of the, really the only viable option that they had was to not honor the agreement that they had committed to 10 years prior. So they basically made a fiduciary decision in order to sustain the financial viability of the library. It's about the only thing they had to do. So the important thing here is there wasn't really any greed. There wasn't any, oh, there's this pot of money, let's go get this cash to help the library. They were kind of backed into a corner, and they had to make this decision in order to sustain the library. So we can talk about them voiding the agreement as being unfair, because that's true. I would agree with that. But you look at the other side is what we're really doing by cutting their funding by 30%. We're penalizing them for making a financial or fiduciary decision to sustain the library. And I could argue that's also unfair. So what I would like to suggest is, first, I'd like to respectfully request that we not support the resolution with regard to the distribution, and that rather we focus on how do we resolve this? How do we, rather than year by year, oh, we're mad at the library, we're going to cut their funding. Well, let's take the political spin out of it, let's take the grudges out of it, and let's figure out what are we going to do going forward. And it would seem to me that we would want to take some steps to try to help the Hudson Area Joint Library resolve their financial issues, just as we would help not just Hudson, but just like we would help any other library in the county if they're having financial difficulties. Help them get on their feet financially, and then it would seem to me the ultimate goal would be, let's get back to implementing the agreement that was voided, because it was a fair agreement. So how do we move past this distribution where we're cutting their funding? How do we resolve that and move forward and re-implement the agreement that was put into place or whenever back in 2002?
Supervisor Axelrod.
The big key is you're forgetting all the other libraries that Hudson members are using, and that's costing them. This is what they were paying for, is for their patrons using other libraries. Then they stopped paying that. These other libraries, so you're saying that we should give all the money to Hudson and then that other libraries will have to cut their services. Because right now, the way it's set up, Hudson Libraries and about 5 others around Hudson are all hurting a little. By giving Hudson the full 100% and not expecting them to pay any of the libraries anything, they're getting a big bonus, and the other libraries are getting even more money taken away from them. It was an agreement that the only reason that the county approved the joint library was if they did this. And then legally it was not, according to my understanding, legally it was not written correctly. So legally, they were able to get out of this agreement. But if the board way back then knew that, I don't know if they would have approved the joint library. So in my opinion, we should keep it like this and still work with the Hudson Library, but I don't think it's fair to put a double whammy on the surrounding libraries. They're already getting one whammy because they're not getting the full amount they should. And by having Hudson get the 100% and not having these surrounding libraries get even a little of what they are owed, to me is very unfair.
Supervisor Peterson.
I made the statement last year, and I still stand by it this year. You know, I said if Hudson that feels that they're being treated unfairly, that they could always dissolve that and come back into the fold with the rest of the libraries.
Any other questions?
I just want to respond real quick. I don't disagree with you, Judy. And I'm not necessarily suggesting that we go right back to 100%. All I'm saying is that we need some better resolution to this issue, because it is unfair to the other libraries, and it's in some ways unfair to Hudson as well. So I don't have an answer, but I think we need to really talk about this in more detail and figure out a better solution rather than having this drag on every year after year.
Any other? Supervisor Coulter.
Yeah, I just want to clear up one thing, because I think there's been a misunderstanding about where this money comes from. This comes from all the communities that don't have their own library. Their property taxpayers pay it for their users. It's not for Hudson Library users who use other libraries, or Hudson area residents who use other libraries. It's for communities, the taxes on communities that don't have a community library that they support directly at a minimum amount that they're required to by state law. Okay, North Hudson
And the town of Hudson and the city of Hudson all support the Hudson Joint Library at a level that they're required to by state law. In fact, City of Hudson exceeds that requirement. The Hudson Library is the most efficient library we have in the county in terms of the lowest cost per, or it's in there, it's very close, the lowest cost per borrowed item of any library in the county, and it does a huge volume. All it's asking is that it be treated like all other libraries in the county and get paid their share of the full share of the rural users tax that all the other libraries get for servicing that business. They're the injured party in this case.
Any other discussion? Supervisor Peavy.
I just want to follow up on Supervisor Coulter's comment. Remember, this is property tax based, so every cornfield, every pasture, every hayfield pays a library tax. And that's not fair either. So I don't feel very much sympathy for Hudson. You know, I got smart cows, but they aren't using the library yet. So, you know, and I don't have a solution for that either. But it's not a fair tax, but that's just the way the statute is written. Thank you.
Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second out of Supervisor Brinkman.
I talked to a member of the Hudson Library Board a month ago or so, and they haven't heard from a representative of this board in 3 years. I think it's time that we look at doing something different in terms of somebody else talking with Hudson and seeing if there can't be resolution made on this. Because this is 5th year in a row? 6th year in a row? Okay, 3rd year in a row. It just seems that painful each year to go through it. So I would like to see us get something resolved here in the next year so it doesn't have to continually come back like this.
Maybe.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr. Chair.
Hanson.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going to ask, if I can, Judy, a question. The Hudson Library Association, and piggybacking on what Dave Peterson said, they have the ability to come back into the library, the county library system, right? And they have, therefore, an open invitation to come to the Library Association anytime they want to. When did it become incumbent on the county board to go to them? Just saying.
I think sometimes in order to come to resolution, I'm sorry, can I speak, Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Go ahead,
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor
may I please?
Brinkman. I'm thinking maybe what we should do is we should get the library committee involved in this and have something come in front of the county board as an agenda item and talk about that
Thank you.
in the future. I think that's what we should probably do because we do have a county library committee, so let's look at it that way. So we have a motion and a second on the floor. We'll vote on this right now. And that passes. Our next one is a resolution updating PTO personnel policy. I'll turn that over to the administrator. I don't know, let me get a motion to approve this. And that's Supervisor Peterson. Do I have a second from anybody? Supervisor Motatum, second.
This is a resolution coming in front of you from the Administration Committee. It makes 2 minor revisions to the existing policy. The first is Section 2.4.7. Rather than transferring PT hours in excess of the permitted maximum every 2 weeks on payroll, it was recommended by the finance staff that it be done once a year. At year end, it has the same cumulative effect, but it would be done once a year rather than 26 times a year. It would create more efficiencies and also less possibility for error. That's the first change. The second is even more minor. It's was a suggestion from a staff advisory person that the section entitled personal time off, rather than personal time off, it would be paid time off. So it's a change of one word. So those are the two changes, and they're very minor. We recommend their approval.
Any discussion? Supervisor Rockfield.
I just have one, and maybe it was in here and I missed it, but on page 336, under 2.4.4 uses, it says PTO and TSB hours are for the personal use of the employee only unless hours are donated per the PTO donation program. What exactly is the PTO donation program?
If a person has exhausted their PTO balance, they have the ability to work through the HR department and ask for donations from other employees.
Okay, the reason I ask this is that,
Scott?
I'm sorry.
It can only be for a serious health condition as defined by the IRS code. Otherwise, it's considered income of the donor. So there are strict regulations regarding that.
Right, but the reason I'm asking this is that in Glenwood City, when I was on the school board, we had a major problem with people donating their time, and then they got sick, and they didn't have the time. So then they had to get up. I mean, it just built up, and we finally changed it to nobody could donate time. And I know that's a really negative, horrible thing to look at in a way, but I don't know if we've ever had a situation like that happen in the county.
I can't speak to that. I'd have to ask our HR director. I think if it was a real problem, she would have told me.
Okay.
Any other questions? Not seeing any. We'll vote the resolution. It's all yeses. Thank you. Last one is a resolution establishing county administrators' goals for July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2019. Supervisor Peterson. Motion, do we have a second? Supervisor Miller.
These are goals that come from the administration committee annually. The committee establishes work priorities and goals for the county administrator to include in the overall work plan. The three goals are listed. The committee had one change originally. We had a goal on the transportation facility. It was the suggestion of the supervisors on the administration committee that that goal be substituted with the other one of working with the new transit commission to establish a strategic plan and what have you. So these are the three goals. Geez, by looking at it, I'm already a month behind. So I better get going on these. Thanks.
Any questions? Supervisor Fiedler.
I have a question for the administrator. And this might be spelled out in your goals or in other documents that reflect the goals, but is there a goal for the number of or percentage of veterans that the county employs? And if so, what is it? And if not, what should we have a policy that sets out our affirmative feeling that veterans should in some way be thoughtfully looked at?
I think it's a good suggestion. I would have to look at our affirmative action plan specifically, which I will do now that you've brought it up, but I'm hopeful and I'm certain, but I will verify this, that there is some sort of inclusion of veterans as part of our overall affirmative action plan for the county. But I will double back with our HR staff and get back to you on that.
Any other questions? Not seeing any. We have a motion and a second on the floor. We'll vote. All yeses, thank you. We're getting close. Request for future agenda items. Anybody have any? Supervisor Motatum?
Yeah, I'd like to put on the agenda that we, the county considers a county-wide, or the county board considers a county-wide non-binding advisory referendum on cannabis legalization for the April 2020 ballot. And since we have some time, I don't know that it has to go on next month. We could potentially wait a few months.
Get that, Cindy? Okay. Any other agenda items? Supervisor?
Mr. Chairman, as the newbie, I found tonight's meeting very informative and very thoughtfully conducted by you and by the county administrator and by all the supervisors. Everybody was extremely thoughtful in their remarks, very polite. To be honest, my only fault that I might find is that some of the things we considered, I thought could be considered more expeditiously. And I just simply point out that in our agenda, our number 6 is labeled consent agenda. And in some organizations I belong to, items that we generally are 99% certain are going to be approved by all of us go onto a consent agenda. And it's circulated to all the people that are involved, for example, in our case, the supervisors, 8 days in advance or a week in advance. And if any supervisor wants that item placed onto the discussion agenda, like in our case it would be item 11, I guess, then it's automatically placed up for discussion. So we're not trying to hide anything from anybody. But for example, on the appointments, they were thoughtfully raised, but they could have been disseminated to us by the county administrator with an explanation, a brief biography of the person and a reason why he selected them. All could be about 2 or 3 sentences. And I would just suggest that you, possibly in coordination with the administration committee chairman or the other chairman of committees, when you create a consent calendar, create it so you can simply move the consent calendar. And it would include about, in today's case, about 10 items. And they could just be done automatically. Again, not precluding any supervisor from requesting a discussion of something. But these items are out there for the public to look at, to comment on. The background information is available for them. We're not trying to hide a thing. Just another example of something. You very thoughtfully and very laboriously went through one item where you had to read, I can't find it myself now, you had to read number 6 within Roman numeral 11 business, an extensive discussion of amendments that were being considered. Again, the same point. These are open for the public. They can look at them. We can look at them. And I don't think we should put you through the pain of reading 6 or 7 lines and then we vote on it with pretty much in agreement. So those are just my observations. And my final observation, again, I hope I'm not being out of order here in what topic we're on, request for future agenda. But I wonder if I'm just going to wonder about something but not ask for a vote on it in any way, if we shouldn't also have some period for open discussion of items that are just important to the board that aren't otherwise on the agenda. I know that could be a hornet's nest in some cases, but honestly, I'm so impressed with the thoughtful comments everybody's had tonight, and I would say you should be able to control that discussion completely and just say that's out of order if you felt that way. But there's some things we might just want to bring up. That's all I've got.
Any others? Supervisor Brinkman.
On Sunday, August 26th at noon will be the annual St. Croix County Sheriff's Department Canine fundraiser at Pheasant Hills Golf Course located just north of Hammond in St. Croix County. If anybody is interested in golfing in that tremendous fundraiser, that is a lot of fun, please contact me via email or cell phone, and I will get the information to them.
Is that an agenda item? That's what I was asking for.
Oh, well, I'll just
That's
repeat it later then.
Just wait a
I'm
minute.
sorry, listen, I'm sorry, I just woke up and.
Somebody should do a point of order.
Can we put that on the next consent agenda?
Any other agenda items? Otherwise, we'll move ahead. Thank you. And then we've got, what?
Dogs play golf?
Yeah. County Clerk's report.
I have no correspondence, just a reminder, the partisan primary elections next Tuesday. It's often confusing for voters. You can only vote in one party. You can't vote straight party. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your dogs, I guess. No, I'm just kidding. It's very confusing to voters, and I know some would say I only vote in one party, but it's still, we do end up with several spoiled ballots during this election. Thanks.
Thank you, Cindy. I have an announcement here. The County Concrete is having they invited the county board if they'd like to go down to their, they'll have like an open house for us, a 2-hour tour of their facility, if anybody wants to go. And I think Cindy set that up for a date, was that 24th?
I sent out an email today on
Yeah,
that.
so everybody
just
has that in
reserving
their
August
packet,
22nd.
so they know. So if you want to go, that's something that sounds kind of interesting down there. That's what I have. I know Mr. Long has something for the announcements. Supervisor Long?
Thanks. I'll be brief. One of the kind of lifelong dreams my wife and I have had for a long time is to build our retirement home. And we happen to be in the process of that dream right now, and it's very exciting. Everything's going along really well. So the unfortunate part of that for me is that new home happens to reside in District 3. So as of the time that I actually move into that home, I'll no longer be eligible to hold on to this seat. So I'll have to resign. I wanted to at least let everyone know so that we had plenty of time to plan ahead and plan for a smooth transition so we won't miss a beat. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Supervisor Coulter.
Pepperfest in North Hudson is weekend after this coming one. So music Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night keeps dogs and old women awake even if they have their hearing aids out.
Okay. Any other announcements? You're done, Ian. So, did a good job. Nothing else?
Thank you, everybody.
What?
Thank you, everybody.
Yep. I want to thank everybody for their patience tonight, and I think the meeting went really well for all the public comment we had. So thank you. We're adjourned.